Ptolemy V, born 210 BCE until 180 BCE, died approximately 30 years of age. He was the son of Ptolemy V and Arsinoe III, who unfortunately disappeared, presumably murdered by courtiers. Ptolemy V was 6 years of age when he became king. There was a co-regency with a courtier. Ptolemy V was very much a puppet on a string. Philip V of Macedonia wanted to reunite Greece, and that meant going to war with his neighbours. Obviously, a lot of his neighbours didn't want that. They formed leagues of defence against him. The other problem was the Seleucid Empire wanted to regain its territories in Syria and Canaan. At this time, Rome had conquered Carthage, and they started looking towards the Aegean and the Mediterranean. And Egypt had a boy king in the hands of unscrupulous murderers. Something had to be done. And in 203 BCE, for 1 year, there was a revolution in Egypt. The courtiers were removed, and one of Egypt's most noble generals became regent with Ptolemy V. His name was Tlepolemus. At this time, there was the Fifth Syrian War, believe it or not, a fifth one, with the Seleucid Empire. And this time, Egypt lost Phoenicia, Syria, and Canaan. So he lost all the lands which they held before. It was very difficult. There was revolution in the country, change, overtax burden on the people, and they needed to find a solution. The solution was offered by the leader of the Seleucid Empire. He offered his daughter in marriage to Ptolemy V, Cleopatra I. The Egyptians thought over the offer. First, they asked Rome to intervene with the Seleucid Empire, but unfortunately, they were at loggerheads with Philip V of Macedonia. The other problem that the Egyptians had during this Fifth Syrian War with the Seleucid Empire was another revolt broke out in Upper Egypt. 204, well, this one didn't go on for a short period of time, went on for 8 years. Eventually the rebels were captured and executed in Alexandria. Now, what led the Egyptian people to have an uprising in their country? Well, there were 79 years of warfare, from the first Syrian campaign to the fifth. Egypt had been at war for nearly 80 years. 80 years of tax burden, draining the economy. It was agreed that Ptolemy V would marry Cleopatra I. In 197 BCE, the coronation of the king commenced at Memphis. And the day after, there was the decree of Memphis, and it assured all the temples, all the priests and temples in Egypt that they wouldn't have to pay taxes. It was recorded on stelae. Remember these big pieces of stone? It was recorded in hieroglyphs, which was the magical writing of the Egyptians, the Demotic, which is the shorthand version, and underneath the Greek. Now, this raises several questions. Why were temples paying taxes? Remember, the gods were always tax-free in Egypt. Mortuary lands given to support a dead king's cult were always tax-free. They never pay taxes. So does that mean that when the Ptolemies took over and they started entering into these wars, the estates of the temples was so vast that the only way they could raise revenue was by taxing the temples? Were the Ptolemies stupid enough to ignore this was the land of the gods? This was Kemet, the Black Lands. They came to Egypt. They changed the name of Kemet to Egyptus. Egyptus is a Greek name given to the country, means land of the soul. And they introduced coinage. We first see coins being introduced in Egypt during the Persian period, but the Greeks made it official bartering system of coinage during this Greek period. It was a way for the Greek rulers to raise revenue from an economic system based on coin. There were several copies of the Memphis Decree made. One of them survived as a building material, which was found in the side of a fort, Fort Julian, near the town of Rashid in 1799 ACE. And today we call that town Rosetta. Now the text on the stone contained the three scripts which I mentioned: hieroglyphs, Demotic and Greek. And no one could read the hieroglyphs. They could read the Greek. Greek wasn't a problem, but hieroglyphs and Demotic was a problem. The Greek translation was completed in 1803, so 4 years later. Now why 4 years? Well, the French invaded Egypt in 1799. The British sent out an expeditionary force to kick out the French, and they confiscated all the objects which the French had collected. So that stone was sent to Britain, and then copies were made from the stone and distributed all over Europe in an effort to decipher hieroglyphs. Now, funny enough, it was a Frenchman who managed to work out how to read hieroglyphs. His name was Jean Champollion, and he published the two scripts, the hieroglyphs and Demotic, in 1822. So it was quite a time for him to work it out. Now, what's interesting is the hieroglyphs and Demotic scripts. Well, the last hieroglyph script was in the last hieroglyph script ever made in Egypt was on the island of Philae in 436 ACE, and then the temple was closed by the Christians, and hieroglyphs fell silent until 1822. So for 1,386 years, those magical words of the gods couldn't be read in Egypt. Vive la France! So in 194 BCE, Ptolemy V married Cleopatra I. They had 3 children. Ptolemy died in 180 BCE, leaving behind his wife and Ptolemy VI, who was aged 6. So is this another repeat of Ptolemy V? Well, let's find out soon. Thanks for watching. Press your subscribe button. Thumbs up. Bye for now. See you soon.